Welcome to MuggleCast episode 394, our big Fantastic Beasts Crimes of Grindelwald analysis episode. I'm Andrew.
I'm Eric.
Micah.
And I'm
We're joined
Danielle.
by a guest this week. Yep, that's her, Danielle.
Oh, sorry.
It's perfectly fine. We saw Crimes of Grindelwald with you, Danielle. You've actually been on the show before, I think. It's been a while, though.
Yeah, it has been a while. At least a year, I think. But I've been listening since 2007, so it's like I've been here with you for a very long time.
Fantastic. So you know that we intro ourselves at the beginning, and that's why you did such. You did that.
Creature of habit, yeah.
She's on it.
But you live in Chicago, too, and you saw Crimes of Grindelwald with Eric, myself, and a few others last night. Here on Navy Pier, our screening wasn't very crowded.
No.
Kind of surprising.
Yeah.
We went to these fantastic fandom events with AMC and IMAX, and ours was on Navy Pier in Chicago, and that may have been why ours wasn't very crowded. Navy Pier is not the easiest movie theater to get to. So
Yeah, it's kind of removed a little bit. And there were like 10 other AMCs doing it as well. At the same time on Tuesday before the movie came out. This whole Tuesday release date is really shocking, I think.
yeah, I think they wanted to get some positive buzz from fans because I think they knew that the critics would be wishy-washy on it. Micah, how was your screening, though? Was that one crowded?
It was fairly crowded, I would say. It wasn't packed, so probably similar to your experience at Navy Pier. I was in the heart of New York City in Times Square, and actually want to give a thank you and a shout out to Miranda Bullard, one of our
Aww.
Slug Club members who was there. Actually brought me some Birdie Bots every flavor bean because I have mentioned that I had never had them before, so I was able to down a few prior to the screening. As I think I mentioned on Twitter, I lucked out on the first one, which was cinnamon, but it was all downhill after that. So thank you, Miranda. That was very, very nice of you.
So we are going to talk about many aspects of Crimes of Grindelwald today. So spoiler warning, if you haven't seen it, you probably should stop listening. You really need to see the movie first. I think we would all agree that you need to see this before listening to this episode. It's good to experience the surprises yourself in the theater. We're going to start with our general reactions to the movie, and then we'll get into the particular elements. So I'll start. I thought J.K. Rowling proved with this movie that she continues to be able to write some really clever stuff in the Wizarding world. There are some great moments in this movie where I'm like, oh, that is so smart. I still love J.K. Rowling. But I worry that her skill set is not made for writing movies. There's a lot happening in this movie, and she just naturally wants to pack a lot of info in. And WB lets her do it because she's J.K. Rowling. She's built this empire. That's probably part of the agreement. J.K. Rowling can do whatever she wants. But it's not working out in terms of writing. I did like a lot of the movie, though, and we'll talk about that later on. Eric, what do you think overall?
Yeah, biggest takeaway for me was just how colorful this movie is. Because I may have mentioned this before on the podcast, but I was growing really tired of sort of the very colorless, bleak kind of deep blues and grays that like the last 5 David Yates directed Harry Potter films and Fantastic Beasts had. This film is a cornucopia or an explosion, a big, Weasley's firework of color. And so that honestly is like my biggest takeaway. Like I'm so happy just on that one little fact. And then I think, story wise, it is overpacked, like you said, and I think there probably should have been like half as many plot lines or characters, because literally like a few characters have moments where they shine, but mostly it's just overpacked. And it's like being in a tube of a firework or watching a fireworks display. There's just so much banging around you.
Micah?
Yeah, I would agree with what both of you have already touched on. I thought it was entertaining from start to finish. I really did enjoy the beasts, probably most of all. But the movie tried to move too many plot lines with not enough context. And I think that goes to Andrew, your point about J.K. Rowling maybe just not being fit for screenwriting. And I think she probably wanted to provide a lot more backstory and detail, but just because of the timing of the film, being around 2 hours and change, just couldn't work. And I know we'll talk a lot about some of those moments, but agree, there was just too much happening in this film.
Yeah.
And what do you think, Danielle?
I mean, not to parrot what's already been said, but I definitely agree with the idea that J.K. Rowling maybe isn't cut out for screenwriting. I was actually having those thoughts while I was watching the movie, which kind of took me out of it. I enjoyed the quiet character moments and like the moments where they're actually like enjoying the world around them, because that's what I think of when I think of Fantastic Beasts. And I do think that this one was more visually beautiful than the other films, but it just felt like the things that I liked were overwhelmed by overly complicated and just like constant exposition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like there wasn't a lot of downtime, and so my brain was working overtime a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me a bit of is Deathly Hallows Part 2, where there's so much that they need to get to, but as a viewer, even a casual viewer, you're wondering, okay, well, how does this all fit together? What exactly is going on? And maybe it's not the best comparison I'm making, but I did feel like a lot of times in this film, it's only the second film. Why is there so much that just seems to be there's a lot of holes, in terms of the backstory, and I feel like she could have just taken more time to develop some of these characters and the situations that they're going through.
Yeah, this would have made a good third film, I think.
Yeah.
Like a halfway point, because of all that's happening. She could have taken 2 or 3 things, made a second movie that's just about them, like introduce Bunty to everybody properly, because she ain't got the right screen time in this. Show a little bit more of how Credence gets to the point where, because he's already set on his journey, things like that could have been a decent second film. They really went all balls to the wall, need these climactic battle scenes, need these super crazy special effects, and I think it suffers. I think the stories of these characters kind of suffer.
Yeah. I found Bunty to be kind of useless. I don't think she needed to be in there. She's just thirsty for Newt.
Yeah, can you take
she's
your
like, hey, you
shirt
can swim
off?
shirtless.
Really?
It just wasn't justified. Her existence wasn't justified. Nagini's existence wasn't really again, we've talked.
Oh, no.
It's just not. They aren't given enough to do in the movie that gives them a reason to be in the movie.
Yeah. So, all right. There's a ton to discuss. We're going to start with the biggest thing, the thing uttered at the very end of the movie. Credence is actually Aurelius Dumbledore. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. It was hard to hear what Grindelwald was saying a little bit.
Really, not like that happened at the end of the last film either.
Howie hi, that's all in all.
Waiting for the script book.
So I was kind of dumbfounded.
Me too.
I was like, huh.
Dumblefounded?
Yes. You see it coming like 20 seconds beforehand when Grindelwald mentions the Phoenix, which Dumbledore had mentioned earlier in the movie to Newt.
Right.
I've seen a big so the big question is, how does this work? Because we never knew about this other Dumbledore brother. Apparently he's a brother. Now there's also debate, is he actually a brother? Is it like a metaphorical brother? But Dumbledore seems to care enough about him to bring him up to Newt, and that justifies if Credence is actually Dumbledore's brother, then that explains why Dumbledore would send Newt after him. I don't know. I've just been having a hard time figuring this out, because we never knew about this guy, and now he's here, and we're looking for references in the past to this mystery character, but nothing's really adding up. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. a lot of people who are giving feedback about this film are talking about how J.K. Rowling is traipsing over canon, right? I mean, adding in, if we take this at face value and Credence is Dumbledore's other brother, like, which means he's also a brother to Aberforth and Ariana, then that's just crazy. And she absolutely is like way rewriting or overriding the knowledge of the Dumbledore family, which was a prominent part of Deathly Hallows. Now, I tend to err on the side of Grindelwald wasn't necessarily being literal. Either he doesn't exactly know exactly who Credence is, or, you know, the way that Grindelwald talks, saying brother is just like, you know, a member of the same human race as you. Like your brothers are going, you know, brothers and sisters are going after each other, this, that, the other thing. So I prefer to, I think he is a Dumbledore because of the Phoenix, but I prefer to think that maybe he's Ariana's child. Because if we don't know specifically that she had a kid, but we also don't know specifically what traumatic event occurred to her. And we've spoken, Danielle, were you in that episode where we talked about Ariana, actually? I had like a flashback of maybe that was you.
I have no idea. It could have been.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, Ariana was very young when she died. I mean, she was in her teens, so
yeah, but
that would be a bit of a stretch.
She was probably raped, though.
Maybe.
We kind of came to that conclusion that was probably like the writing in association with what kind of happened afterward, where she retreated within herself and eventually, you know, caused a problem, could have been raped. And if she was raped by those Muggle boys, it would explain why Dumbledore's father went crazy and killed them or attacked them. And if a child was born, it would also explain why they wanted to give it away. It puts Credence on the boat. You know, it puts baby Credence on the boat to America, is all I'm suggesting it. So that's my favorite theory as far as who he is.
The kids attacked her when she was 6, though.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
Then. Never mind.
However, she could have been raped later on. I mean, this isn't a fun discussion to be having, but, you know.
I mean, J.K. Rowling did kind of introduce rape in this movie to a certain extent.
Yeah,
so.
with the Queenie Jacob thing.
Well, Leta and or Corvus Lestrange,
the
and
mom.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Another theory that makes this work is that Eric referenced Deathly Hallows, and we're hearing in that book about, you know, Rita Skeeter's The Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore. We were told that a lot of Dumbledore's life was shrouded in mystery. There are a lot of rumors.
Right.
So we never really learned the full truth behind Dumbledore's life. So in that way, I could see J.K. Rowling adding this brother in. There was a brother. We never heard about him because Dumbledore was, you know, a reserved man.
Yeah.
I just have a hard time believing that Grindelwald is being honest with Credence.
Yeah.
Remember the whole first movie, all the things he's trying to do to track down this Obscurus, and he's not even aware of the fact that it's Credence up until the very end when he reveals himself. And we know that Grindelwald is not trustworthy. He's a manipulator, but he needs Credence. He outright says this in their hideout when he's talking to Crawl, who is one of his followers, and he explicitly states that Credence is the only one that can kill Dumbledore. Now, is that because it's Dumbledore versus Dumbledore, or is it because it's the only entity powerful enough to kill Dumbledore? Because we know Grindelwald can't move against him, much like Dumbledore can't move against Grindelwald.
But it goes back to something I brought up earlier. If Grindelwald is lying, then why does Dumbledore care so much about Credence?
Well, everybody cares about Credence, though. That's the weirdest thing about this movie.
Yeah.
The entire wizarding government is not only aware of Credence's survival and existence, but they're dispatching entire teams of people to hunt for him. We mentioned this when it was in the previews and the press releases about how everybody's in Paris for Credence. He's like the most sought after wizard by like all of these departments. If he's secretly a Dumbledore, then that's a hell of a secret for the wizarding public to just agree to keep from everybody decades later when Rita Skeeter does her digging, especially working as closely with the ministry as she does. If Credence really is a secret Dumbledore, it doesn't make sense to me that somebody at the Ministry wouldn't have just brought up that old rumor, seeing as how, for instance, in this movie, when they go and confront Dumbledore at Hogwarts, Dumbledore basically flat out says, I was gay with Grindelwald. And everyone in the Ministry that's there totally knows about this, about how romantically involved or closely entwined Dumbledore was with Grindelwald. And that's not something you just easily forget, right?
Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to give everybody a brief refresher on the Dumbledore family we thought we knew. There was Kendra, who was killed by an outburst of Ariana's magic. And after the first Fantastic Beasts movie, it's believed that Ariana is an Obscurus, but that still hasn't been, brought into the film yet. And then Dumbledore's father was Percival, and he was thrown in Azkaban for attacking the kids who had attacked Ariana. I was doing some Googling, and one of my friends, John, brought this up to me. Harry, at one point in Deathly Hallows, I believe it is, he's looking at a photo of Kendra Dumbledore, and J.K. Rowling writes, quote, Harry thought of photos of Native Americans he'd seen as he studied her dark eyes, high cheekbones, and straight nose, formally composed above a high-necked silk gown. So here we are to believe that Kendra Dumbledore, Albus Dumbledore's mom, might actually be Native American or of Native American descent. That might help explain this boat scene, which, by the way, had like complete... my head checked out. My mind went numb. It was too much information at once. J.K. Rowling did this in the first Corman Strike book, Cuckoo's Calling. There was a huge info dump at the end. My head just numbs up when I start getting all this info.
Yeah.
Micah, you seem to understand it all, though.
What? No.
You were acting like I was crazy when I was like, I don't get it.
I understand everything in the Crimes of Grindelwald.
Save us, Micah.
Well,
tell us, Micah.
My first question is, was this supposed to be the Titanic sinking? Is
No.
that... No?
No.
Is that confirmed?
Everyone
sure?
needs to stop with this stupid Titanic theory. I refuse to buy it. Some people have actually told me it doesn't align.
It was like 1927 or something here, wasn't it?
It doesn't align.
No, it's it does align. It's 19.
It does align, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been... The Titanic sank in 1912. So...
Oh, right.
If we're working out the ages of Credence and, well, Corvus died. So Credence, that could be what that was. But anyway, I don't think that's probably relevant to the overall plot. I'll probably rue the day I said those words later on in the series.
You won't.
Yeah, I probably won't. What's happening is I'm as confused as you are, Andrew, honestly. So Corvus and Leta are on a boat going to New York, sent away by their father for what reason I don't recall. And also on this boat is Credence and presumably his mother. Like, there's no reason to think that it wasn't, but it looked like the woman who attended to him. See, this is where like my mind just... I can't process it. I need to see the movie again. So
there was overload at this point for sure.
Yeah. So because also on this boat is the woman that he ends up meeting in Paris, who he thinks is initially his mom, but was in fact responsible for caring for him. But I don't know if she was responsible for Corvus. Was she responsible for Credence? Like, it's all mixed up in my head right now. Somebody else can give it a shot.
So the woman that Credence met was the woman who was traveling with Leta. So she would have been technically responsible for Corvus.
Okay. See, that makes sense.
I think.
No, that...
and then we don't know who was the one who was responsible with traveling with the so-called Dumbledore child who ends up being Credence. And that's the woman that drowned. But she ended up drowning with Corvus.
So presumably...
Right, because she tries to save him.
Yeah.
Thinking that it's her child, but it's really not.
Right. I just... it was a lot all at once. The fact that their names are so close, too, like now that we're saying it out loud makes it even tougher.
Right.
And like I just couldn't get beyond the idea of like, why were they on the boat? Why were these two names that we know both on this boat?
Mm-hmm. And we have two Corvuses in this story as well.
Do we?
Yeah.
Is that
Corvus
okay.
Senior?
Sure we do.
Yeah. Well, and then there's I remember the one part that really sticks out at me was Leta getting annoyed at the baby crying. So they swapped the baby with baby Credence. And then that's when the boat sank.
Here's a note that I had too, which is given the population of wizards versus muggles, like the ratio, wizards are not very populated. Like the odds of Leta switching a baby with another baby who is randomly also has magic is ridiculously low. Mm-hmm. It is extremely implausible. Mm-hmm. But that's what happened. That's what we're meant to believe occurred here.
I'm up for this Credence's Albus's brother twist, but I don't know if it needed all this crazy backstory.
No.
As you, the listener, can tell, we've all only seen it once. I already plan on seeing it Thursday. And I also have the script book ordered. So I'm going to be studying this whole plot at the end of the movie for days to come. But it also makes you think, like, should this movie be so much homework? Like, you should be able to see this once and understand it. But it's just all dumped on us. And look, we're not going to sit here complaining about the movie the whole time. Some of you probably understand it, and you're like, what the hell? You guys are idiots. But
I wouldn't say it's complaining, though. Like, we did our complaining already. We probably do some more later. But we're talking about the actual plot and trying to get a better understanding of exactly what was going on. I mean, look, Leta essentially is the reason Credence is alive.
Right.
If not for that switch, then Credence probably would have perished on that ship that night. And so going back to the Corvus angle, though, I think there's that moment when Dumbledore is talking with Leta, and I think there's just this very strong connection with them because what happened between Dumbledore and Ariana, what happened between Leta and Corvus. We know that what she fears most is her brother's death and her responsibility for it. So it's just one of those things, though, that I'm in agreement with you because I don't know that it was necessary in the movie unless this comes into play later on in the series. And in fact, Credence is not really a Dumbledore, is in fact Lestrange. It was all BS all along. Why do all this? Why create all of this backstory? He's almost like he's on a wild goose chase to find out that he's not really a Lestrange, but that evidence was there throughout the film. I thought that's the whole direction that it was going in, and it was kind of a bad red herring because now it turns out that he's a Dumbledore, and I think we're all kind of sitting here scratching our heads saying, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either.
And I think that's the point of what J.K. Rowling did, to not answer a lot of it. So we are sitting here for the next 2 years wondering what the hell happened. I mean, we're sitting here being like, she didn't explain this, and I think that was her goal.
But that's bad storytelling, though. Like Micah said, you're supposed to go to a movie sitting down and after 2 hours understand generally what happened. If this film were 30 seconds shorter, it wouldn't have answered any of the questions it asks in this movie. And that's just ultimately that's bad. You should get some in-plot resolution of, ups and downs, not just characters that show up and then die. I mean, Credence can't even thank Leta for her contribution because she doesn't make it out of this movie alive. These things that happen are happening for seemingly no grand reason, and it's all muddled, and it's like, it's uninteresting how complicated it is. I get numb and I turn away. And if this is confusing us, people we've done over almost 400 of these podcasts over 13 years. If it's confusing us, if we can't tell you what the heck we just watched, good luck to general audiences. Good luck to casual viewers of the things.
I don't disagree with you there, but I will say that there were a lot of moments that played very, very well in the theater. and that people really reacted positively to, that you could tell we're fans of the Potter series. I'm thinking of McGonagall. I'm thinking of Nicolas Flamel. They got very, very positive reactions in the theater. So I think there are certain things that people are going to enjoy no matter what.
Yeah.
But this whole backstory is confusing, quite honestly. And I know we'll get to talking about Yusuf Kama later, but what the relevance of him to the story, and my question about him is, if he made an unbreakable vow with his father all those years ago and Corvus died, why is he still beholden to an unbreakable vow? Like, that goes to the writing component of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of unbreakable vows, let's talk about the blood pact between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. So this is something we didn't know going into it, right?
Right.
And this explains why Dumbledore can't, quote, move against Grindelwald. What is a blood pact, though? We don't really get too many answers on it. I saw one interesting theory that, so an unbreakable vow, if you violate it, you dead. That's it. But with a blood pact, we don't know what happens. There is one idea I read that I really like, that you just physically can't do something. So they made a blood pact that they wouldn't fight one another, right? Was that it?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
So if this theory is correct, they physically can't fight one another. Maybe that means casting spells to, to attack one another. Maybe they can't even physically get close to one another. But does that make sense to you three?
Yeah. I mean, I think my first theory was like, maybe what happens with a blood pact, like what happens to one would happen to the other. But I would hope that Dumbledore would be selfless enough to like sacrifice himself if he like something needed to happen to Grindelwald. But I think because of how Dumbledore was operating in this movie, and he was very far away from everything, I think that would make sense that they wouldn't be able to go near each other. But I would want to know then what drove them to decide that they couldn't go near each other.
Mm-hmm.
What confuses me most is that bit where Newt asks Dumbledore, "Do you think you'll be able to destroy it?" And Dumbledore says, "What? Like, I'm not sure." It's just a little trinket necklace. It's not a Horcrux, for crying out loud. Like, this isn't a Horcrux, so it should just be able to just kind of be like destroyed. Just step on it.
Do you think, though, that's because he can't, or because he doesn't want to at this point?
That's a good question that I think maybe we should be asking.
Yeah, or like, what happens when you destroy a blood pact? There's got to be something. Yeah,
I mean, think of a blood pact like a promise, and then that promise is sealed away in this, whatever you'd call it, the trinket, the lock. It's not another locket.
It looks like a necklace, to be honest. It really looks like a necklace.
Well, I guess it was a necklace in the beginning of the film, right? Or it was like on a chain.
Yeah, it looks almost like Arwen's star from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but like the closeness, it's basically the love child between an Unbreakable Vow and a Horcrux at this point, which I don't hate. I mean, we guessed it was kind of an Unbreakable Vow sort of situation, and it's something very, very similar on the surface. So I think that's kind of, neat. But I don't know why Dumbledore, like, obviously it's for a later film, but I don't know what the hesitation is there between like whether or not he can destroy it.
In terms of storytelling, I think it's just a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And Newt is just assuming that Dumbledore wants to destroy it, but maybe Dumbledore doesn't.
Yeah.
Getting back to Micah's point, and maybe we'll learn more about that.
He's not ready. Going back to the mirror and what he saw in the mirror,
yes,
even in present day, I don't think he's ready for that yet.
Yeah, so I found that interesting, and something I wasn't considering when we saw that shot in the trailer of Dumbledore in present day. That really is present day. It's very interesting that Dumbledore's deepest desire is still Grindelwald.
Yeah.
Or, like, is it his deepest desire? Because it looks like it was showing a memory.
Well, that was weird.
Like, it wasn't like he was standing next to Grindelwald or they were in an embrace. It was literally, we were seeing a memory or a flashback, but this time it was through the mirror.
To me, that was just Dumbledore thinking back to that blood pact, because we do see present day Grindelwald in the mirror looking back at him.
But have we seen the mirror function like that before?
No.
We haven't, but that's sort of like I love most of the magic in this film. Stuff we've never seen before, and I think it looks and acts amazing. But all of these ways in which, and there were some of these in Fantastic Beasts 1, when they have somebody's face and it's displayed like you'd see it on like a CCTV cam, but instead it's like in a pensive or up in a cloud or smoke or something like that, like I absolutely detest how, like in the mirror too, it's just like surveillance footage of somebody through a magical prism. Because like there has to be some better way to like show or to do it than that. And she's writing over like the mirror showing a memory. That's not what the mirror does.
Yeah, I don't know. I just got from that scene that Dumbledore was having a movie flashback. That's all.
Yeah.
But maybe seeing it again, I'll have a better view of it, so to speak. Or I'll see it the way you two did. One thing I wonder about the Credence Dumbledore thing, it is surprising that Rita Skeeter could have missed that, because she does have a lot of salacious details in her book.
Yeah.
Anything else to say concerning Dumbledore, Credence?
I think the only other thing that I had been thinking about a lot was the idea of the Phoenix. When we see it towards the end of the movie, when Grindelwald makes it grow, it's like, oh, I know what's coming. But the whole time before that, when Credence was holding that baby bird made me think about that earlier scene, the flashback with Newt and Leta when they were still at school and he was nursing the like raven baby bird.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, that's where my flashback kept going to. And I mean, all birds look weird when they're babies. But
it's true.
They looked
Ouch.
very similar. Like, I was expecting if it was going to be another species of bird that it would look different. And so if that bird that Credence was holding at the end wasn't a raven, I'm wondering what the purpose of that one flashback scene and Leta saying like, this is, or Newt saying like, this is your family's bird way back when, that's no longer tied to anything if that bird that Credence is holding is not a raven. And so my thought is perhaps when Grindelwald goes and like lets it go, he does another one of his like transfiguration spells on it and lies to Credence. That would be my only other way of thinking like maybe he's not telling him the truth is because of like this bird. Because like I said, otherwise that scene with Newt and Leta really has no place in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Well, to me, that was just showing Newt's origins, always loving creatures. I loved that scene of young Newt's holed up in like a little closet or something, just with his own little beasts. I thought that was so adorable.
It was cute.
And then they go out to that tree on an island, and at first I was like, oh my God, that's the baby Whomping Willow. And I remember the Whomping Willow hasn't been around for that long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my only counter argument to that is like this movie focused a lot on feline beasts and avian beasts.
Yeah, there were too many birds. There was one too many.
There were a lot of birds and a lot of cats. And so that's why I'm like thinking about those two specific types of beasts so much and why it feels like there should be more weight on them.
Mm-hmm.
It could have just been a misdirect to try and get us to not think of phoenixes for some reason. I mean, the other thing about the baby phoenix was that it was also with Credence on the rooftop, right? Unless that was just another bird altogether. But when Credence is with that bird on the rooftop, Grindelwald also shows up not long after that. Right. So he's in that. He's in the same scenes essentially as this bird. So it could lend to your point, Danielle, that perhaps he's behind what's happening here. And let's not think that he isn't above transfiguration, as you mentioned, or even just coercion, right?
Yeah. Well, does Credence also have the bird at the circus? Isn't he feeding it off on top of a barrel or something like that? Or am I misremembering? Is that on the rooftop?
There were dragons or something in a cage on top of that. I'm really terrible at what beasts were there. On top of that, like water, something that was in the tub.
Fire drakes.
Yeah, I do remember that. I'll have to rewatch and worry where that first bird comes in. But I mean, in the Newt backstory, it could have been any animal. It could have been even like baby Aragog, it could have been any other animal that Newt was looking after, and it was in fact a bird. So whether it was misdirection, which I think is probably the case, or whether it's just like, I don't know, oversaturation of bird beasts, it is really like, it adds to the film being confusing.
J.K. Rowling's doing something with the birds.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's why we're going to Rio.
There was like a DreamWorks movie, animated movie. Rio is all the birds.
Is it a cockatiel? A big cockatiel?
Something
Maybe.
like that. Big colorful birds.
But then at the very end, when we find out that Credence is allegedly a Dumbledore, we see a phoenix that looks just like Fawkes.
That's who I assumed it was. I guess my brain just kind of went there automatically.
But why would Fawkes be with Grindelwald? And then I went Googling because I wanted to see if J.K. Rowling ever said anything about that. And she did say in an interview once, but I don't know if I can trust anything she said in the past now. I mean, McGonagall was in this movie, and technically she shouldn't have been based on everything that we know from the books and Pottermore. Like, stuff like that doesn't add up anymore. And I'm like, I hate to say it, but I've kind of lost trust in J.K. Rowling because she is changing things to suit the plot. But so anyway, she did say in an interview once that Fawkes has only ever been owned by Dumbledore. So, oh man, it's just worrying. Like, I want to believe things that J.K. Rowling has said in the past, but when she does change things, like I said, McGonagall, and then the Nagini stuff is still like not totally adding up. And of course now this Credence Dumbledore thing, that's not adding up yet either. It's hard to trust what she said in the past.
I agree.
What was it though? Dumbledore tells Newt about how there's this, what would you call it? Just like this
Belief?
Story, myth of how phoenixes present themselves to Dumbledore's, but not all of them clearly, because Aberforth, as far as we know, didn't have a phoenix.
He got a billy goat for Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm also very curious about where Aberforth is. I feel like he's going to have to be cast at some point for this series.
Yeah, especially if he's the other brother.
Right, yeah. What about that brother?
Let's just focus on the brother we know.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to bring up, I was thinking about it when we were talking about the blood pact still, and like what it does to Dumbledore. Do you remember his gleam of triumph from Goblet of Fire? When Harry tells Dumbledore that Voldemort took his blood and made it a part of himself, and Dumbledore has a gleam of triumph. Do you think it's because Dumbledore, now that we know Dumbledore has like an inner working of how blood magic affects the wizarding world? Like, he knew it would give Harry the advantage because he knew about his, like, if him and Grindelwald had a blood pact, then he knows a heck of a lot more about what magical blood does when it's intertwined or mixed with two living wizards. Isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah.
Do you think he ever tried to violate that blood pact?
I think that might be what we're like gonna see, or how, because I think in this case it doesn't make Grindelwald weaker. It actually makes him stronger. The fact that he and Dumbledore either share blood or magically their blood is entwined either in a case or whatever it is. It definitely is to the disadvantage of the entire wizarding world that they did that.
Well, do you think also the owner, like the person who holds that trinket, is added advantage over the other one?
That's weird. Yeah, I don't know.
Perhaps.
Because that kind of felt like a win when Newt and Dumbledore like finally have the trinket and Grindelwald doesn't have it. It seemed like something he was trying to squirrel away. And so I'm curious if that actual blood pact like affects the person who's holding it. Like they're somehow maybe above the pact if they have that thing, or if it gives them power of any kind.
I was just wondering though, with the blood pact and if it had ever been violated previously, going back to their youth, and if things got tense between the two of them, and Grindelwald wanted to experiment more with Ariana, and Albus tried to move against him in some capacity. Was Ariana the casualty of Dumbledore trying to break the blood pact?
Right. Because isn't it said that they don't know which one of them caused the curse that killed her?
Yeah, I think it's very vague.
Yeah, maybe it was both of them, or maybe it was Aberforth, because I seem to recall there being this huge fight between the three of them, between Aberforth and Grindelwald, and then Albus stepped in. Maybe now with this blood pact, it prevented him or caused some kind of concussive force that ended up killing Ariana because it was a violation of the blood pact they had made together.
Yeah.
Lots of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you wonder, I mean, when did they make that blood pact? It could have been after the Ariana incident.
Yeah.
So we mentioned McGonagall. We haven't gotten into that previously because that was a spoiler. From what we've read, that does seem to be something that J.K. Rowling has changed. She added this reference to McGonagall, and maybe we'll see McGonagall again. It was a lighthearted moment in the book, or sorry, in the movie, seeing her yell at students and silence one of them and then unsilence them. A student silenced another student. McGonagall unsilenced the student, then silenced them again when they were being annoying. But yeah, so that doesn't align with what we've known previously. It doesn't particularly bother me because, like, all right, it's a fun moment for fans. Dumbledore's there, include McGonagall too, sure.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me really either. Pottermore is where it said that she was born. They did the whole backstory on Minerva McGonagall and said that she was born in, like, the 40s. So she should not be 35 or a 30-year-old woman, like, in this time period. What bothered me more was the fact that they're kind of reverting to this whole Dumbledore runs the school and Minerva's his sidekick kind of thing. But actually there's another headmaster. Like Hogwarts has a headmaster. Where was that guy? Presumably it's a guy.
Right.
Where was the headmaster of Hogwarts when his school was invaded by this ministry folk? Why is Dumbledore seeming to be the one that calls the shots all of a sudden and Minerva's running in? Where's the headmaster? Like, is Dippet just like a deadbeat? Like what's, it was just, it's intolerable to me that it's the Dumbledore and Minerva show again, because it's way too soon in the timeline for that. Even if she is alive.
For them to be running the school. Yeah. Yeah. On the other hand, though, we are sitting here critiquing the film for there being too many characters. So, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But
it's trying to track down who is headmaster or mistress at this point. I don't think it's Dippet yet. I think we talked about it on a previous episode. I'm okay with the McGonagall piece, honestly. I know it violates canon, but it's just like I said, it received really positive response in the theater. People were clapping and happy about it, so those types of things don't really bother me too much. There was also the mention of McLaggen, the young boy, who I would guess would be Cormac's grandfather, maybe.
Yeah.
And speaking of violating canon, Dumbledore is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. We had only ever knew him to teach Transfiguration, so we actually found this out a while ago. It sounds like so what happens in this movie is that he's forbidden from teaching DADA, and perhaps that is how he transfers to Transfiguration. Like, that was fine. I was happy with how J.K. Rowling explained that in a quick way.
Yeah.
Another character was Nagini. So, again, we found out about this character in advance. I can kind of see why they told us that Nagini was going to be in the film in advance, because Nagini doesn't really have a big role. She's there for Credence. They escape the circus together. She helps him try to find his mother, but she's not really doing anything, is she?
She's a security blanket. Like, she does nothing. She's just there for other characters to kind of, like, look at. And she's supposed to be close. I think we're supposed to think, like, she and Credence are close, like they're running away together. But in times where it should matter what her opinion is on things, Credence just kind of does whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So she's just a set piece, which is kind of really disappointing.
It's even more dehumanizing than everything else that has happened and been said about Nagini recently.
Well, so, and that's the other thing. You wonder how she's going to have a larger role in this movie. I guess one of the elements will be that she is still on Newt's side, on Dumbledore's side, because she was there at Hogwarts at the end of the movie, which is kind of funny seeing her at Hogwarts, come to think of it, given what happens in Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, she's only about 100 feet from where she dies.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
And where Harry throws the wand over the bridge.
Exactly. Breaks it in half, right?
Yeah. Yep. Not canon, by the way.
Yeah. Of course not.
So I'm hopeful that Nagini is going to have a larger role. I guess her bigger role in future movies will be trying to get Credence away from Grindelwald.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of. How about let's talk about the core four who we met in the original movie, who we fell in love with. So Newt is still mumbling. I had a hard time understanding some of the things that he was saying, but he was quickly manipulated by Dumbledore into going to Paris, and Newt goes for it. He believes Dumbledore. One thing we didn't really get was why Dumbledore and Newt are so close.
Yeah.
Can I just go off of that point, and this may go back to the writing again? It just felt really, their relationship clearly was already established, but I don't feel like as a viewer you got that sense, like, or you didn't get the context to how they knew each other. Why are they working alongside each other? Yes, it was mentioned briefly in the last film, but all of a sudden you go to a cutscene after the Ministry where Newt is chasing Dumbledore around London, and it's like, how did Dumbledore even come into play here? Like they tried to set it up talking about Frank, the Thunderbird, but it fell short for me.
It's just shoehorned in. It's just like, oh, one throwaway line of dialogue that explains that this movie should have started sooner. Like, again, Credence, this whole thing about Grindelwald manipulating Credence into believing that he knows his backstory or the truth about him. And we see multiple times in this movie where Grindelwald sends people to, kill the woman and really set him on this path. Somebody told Credence already that he had some kind of super mysterious past. This is almost as bad as the beginning of Cursed Child, where there's this sudden rumor that Draco's kid was conceived by a time turner and as cursed. Like, how does this information get out? Who the hell is talking about Credence being alive and being the secret Lestrange? We never find out. He just knows that automatically before the movie starts. And so does the Ministry, and so does Dumbledore, and so does Newt by extension. Literally everybody knows this, but we never see where that info comes from, why it drives Credence, why he wants to know who he is, any of that.
I did find it cute how Dumbledore was like, you didn't tell them I sent you for the Thunderbird, did you? And it was like, no, of course not. Like, that was a cool, friend moment. Maybe Dumbledore and Newt just developed this friendship over Newt's passion for beasts. Like, I could understand. I was really close to a teacher in high school because it was TV tech class. I idolized him. He was my guiding light. He was such a great influence on me. Maybe it's the same thing here where the teacher, Dumbledore, really admires Newt's passion and kind of wants to elevate him. So he's, hey, if you want to go find a Thunderbird, there's one over there in Arizona. It's really nice there during the American winter. I kind of get that, but they didn't explain it much to the viewer. That said, let's talk about Jude Law as Dumbledore in general. I mean, I really loved him as Dumbledore.
Oh, he's great. He was really fun to watch.
Yeah. I didn't get as many iconic Dumbledore lines as I would have hoped, but we still have 3 more movies for that.
Yeah.
And maybe J.K. Rowling's just getting warmed up after not writing Dumbledore for a while.
That's fair. I love that he is doing some of the most incredible magic, though. Like, the whole disembodied hand pointing, and
yes,
even after he's disapparated, it's still acting as though he's right next to it. and controlling it. That's super powerful stuff. And I love that Dumbledore is still like the best wizard. And that kind of illustrates what the guys from the ministry say to him. Like, everybody knows he's the very best.
Mm-hmm.
And so J.K. Rowling came up with new magic that shows that.
That was classic kooky Dumbledore.
Yeah.
That floating hand.
Yeah.
Newt goes to Paris because Tina is there. Newt's missing Tina. And then there was also that weird thing, the magazine misprinted Theseus marrying Leta. It printed that Newt was. So
Ugh.
Tina saw that, got all mad. But Newt brought along Jacob. Speaking of Jacob, I mean, he was, you talk about entertaining audiences, Micah. Jacob was the standout for me. He was funny.
Yeah.
Favorite character by far.
Agree. Yeah, I thought that Dan Fogler was great again as Jacob, and just entertaining, funny, had a lot of great jokes. So it kept the mood light, which I think that's what he's there for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, he also had great heart, and the arc with him and Queenie is heartbreaking.
Right.
But that's more on the Queenie side of things, that I think the Queenie, the Jacob stuff was, as far as I'm concerned, pitch perfect. Like you guys are saying, it was consistent from the first film to the second film, which is not something we can say about the other core four. It was really reliable for being a funny thing or entertaining. But he did, also get maybe not so much the center of the heart of being like the heart of the film like he was in the first one, but he still does have some like important emotional, mountains to climb.
Mm-hmm.
And important to mention that what a lot of people speculated about how the rain from the swooping evil didn't erase his memories because they weren't bad memories.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was explained exactly how I was hoping. It was just a quick little thing so we know. J.K. Rowling's opening up all these cans of worms and like leaving us hanging on a lot of things. I just think back to The Cursed Child. Like, there's so many questions we have and we never get them answered. I was afraid going into Fantastic Beasts that we wouldn't hear stuff like that, given that we knew this movie would already be very busy. So, it was a straightforward explanation. Good. That's all we needed.
Speaking of their relationship, though, was the love potion really necessary to coerce Jacob and bring him all the way over to London? This was one of the areas, too, that I felt from a writing standpoint felt very, very rushed.
Yeah.
The whole dynamic between the two of them, the fact that they're all of a sudden fighting with each other, it happens very, very quickly, and then Queenie goes off on her own. She finds favor with Grindelwald and his followers, and that's it. It seemed like they could have used at least another movie to work up to that.
Yep.
So, I was a little disturbed by it because we only a few weeks ago spoke on this show about Merope Gaunt putting that love potion on Tom Riddle Sr., and we were talking about how it was rape.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing Queenie have Jacob under her control like that disturbed me because of that discussion that we just had. That said, some people have been saying, and I can see this explanation, Jacob loved Queenie, but Jacob was not ready to bring their relationship out into the open, whereas Queenie was, similar to how Grindelwald wants to bring all wizard kind out into the open.
I mean, I think the reason why it doesn't sit well is because even though he did love her back, she's still taking away a large aspect of like consent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, he's not consenting to be in the relationship that she wants. He's not consenting to marrying her. And I think that's why it felt so not great.
That's You're right about the engagement. That whole thing was when he was under the potion.
Yes.
And when he that's crazy. And when he confronts her and says, "When were you going to wake me up?" after we had 5 children, it really makes you think, well, that's crazy, right? Because she would have been content. I don't know. It's weird. I don't mind Queenie's arc in this film at all. She goes pretty much exactly how we predicted. That there would be a struggle, that she has a lot to lose and would probably be susceptible to Grindelwald's manipulation. All of that makes perfect sense and even tracks with the first film. But she's lost like 40 IQ points between the end of the first film and the beginning of this film. She sounds like a moron. She just does. I'm sorry. She's trying to explain it.
You're right.
She just sounds stupid. She sounds like she's a not intelligent person. And it's unfortunate because Alison Sudol is wonderful. A great talented actress who's brilliant and can pull off nuance. But the writing is not supporting Queenie actually having thought this through. The writing, it plays it off as if it's a humorful moment. We get to see Jacob vision, right? With like all the pink in the world and it's great. And then it's kind of like Ron when he has the love potion, when Newt scourgifies him or whatever. And he's just like, oh no, I'm sad. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of really horrifying and it's played up for laughs. But Queenie made some really stupid decisions, not the least of which was to destroy her relationship with her sister. Like they don't speak, they don't talk in this movie. And that was a good thing about movie one. Their relationship was a really strong female sisterhood relationship that was like one for the ages, kind of a thing. And instead of building it up, J.K. Rowling's torn it down because she needs the plot to move forward in like this fast-paced hijinks sort of way.
Well, I like that Queenie is going to the dark side.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it wouldn't have been fun if all four of these people weren't disagreeing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but do you think, I think the writing is just, it suffers because there would be a more convincing way to do that while still maintaining everyone's sensibility. We don't know why she makes the choices she does, specifically the choices to go home with a strange woman.
yeah.
A couple of other things.
Well, yeah. So she's drinking Grindelwald's assistant's tea for a long time. Do you think that influenced Queenie's decision? Like,
I mean, it was a pretty persistent teapot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that takes her agency away from her. And that's what J.K. Rowling did with Nagini, and that's what J.K. Rowling did with, it's just these women are not allowed to make their own choices. If it turns out Queenie was bewitched, then that really undermines her character even further.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. No, it does. I hope that Queenie doesn't make a switch back in the next movie, by the way. I hope this stands for a while. And maybe somebody else will go to his side.
Yeah.
Grindelwald's side in the core four. Although I was kind of surprised that Jacob was so convinced that Grindelwald was not the right decision. Like, if Queenie's falling for it, why couldn't Jacob? Especially if Jacob really loves Queenie. Does he love Newt more?
Well, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I think Grindelwald provides the pathway for, at least in Queenie's mind right now, the two of them to be together out in the open. And she's buying into that hard. And Jacob can see right through it.
Yeah.
I think it also could be where they come from. Like, to me, Tina and Queenie they're relatively well off, whereas Jacob is like struggling. We first meet him and he's trying to get a loan at the bank. And so I think his worldview is different from Queenie's, and perhaps he has more experience with people who don't have the best interests at mind or do have like ulterior motives, and he knows how to pick those people out better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that comforted me, though, was seeing Queenie at the end, because she gives Grindelwald perfect advice for how to handle Credence when she says you have to be delicate with him, and gives, like, basically betrays the whole, he tells him what's going on inside, Credence's head, how he's still not sure he made the right choice. She is 100% on Grindelwald's side and doesn't appear to be having drank tea recently about it. And so I think it will stick, to your point, Andrew. I think it will stick for some time, but the writing getting there just wasn't very believable or convincing.
Yeah.
But the end scene I thought was extremely solid.
Camilla is bringing up a good point. She's listening live on Patreon. She says, I think Jacob was paying attention to the dark side of what Grindelwald was saying about Muggles' place in the world. Yeah, that was, I wasn't considering that, but you're absolutely right. Let's talk about Tina, the fourth in the core four. So she went over...
Moving on. Sorry.
Huh?
Oh, I thought you were done with her.
She headed over to Paris to find Credence. There's still not much really going on with her, though. She does still seem to have the hots for Newt, just like Newt has the hots for her, and they get a little screen time together. And I don't know. I remember once that J.K. Rowling said that Tina was her favorite character because she's the most fascinating.
Yeah.
You would be hard-pressed to find what she's talking about in either of these two movies. I find her very flat, and I need to also admit my opinion on Tina is biased because I have an aunt who looks very similar to Tina, and I do not like this aunt. And I just look at Tina, and I think it's my aunt, and I can't see past that. Hope my aunt doesn't listen.
Does your aunt have salamander eyes too?
Yes. You know, the eyes thing was so great. I loved Jacob's, so Newt wants to say they look like a salamander's eyes, and Jacob says no. I absolutely loved all that. That was the clever J.K. Rowling that I was talking about earlier in this.
That was knowing your characters and really allowing them to breathe. I loved that.
Mm-hmm. Now, can someone explain to me, was that done on purpose? He's thinking about salamanders because, Newt's a newt.
Oh.
Well, like
a newt animal.
Like Newt's a lizard kind of creature, and so is a salamander. Okay.
And he's thinking about other lizards.
That didn't even register.
Maybe. Well, it's like weasel and otter connections. They're very similar.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
I just thought that was a weird. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it was interesting that he's thinking about a lizard when his first name is Newt, and a newt is a lizard.
Yeah. I think it's just the highest compliment that Newt can probably think of at this point. He loves beasts, and if he can compare a human that he also loves to a beast, then
yeah,
why not?
Oh, be careful what you're saying, Micah.
I mean,
eyes.
This isn't fantastic bestiality. What, Danielle?
She takes it as a pretty high compliment. Tina knows exactly where he's going once he's like getting closer to what he's trying to say. It's not like she's questioning why he says it.
And she completes the sentence, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She intuits what he's about to say when he's like said most of it.
And she's like here for it.
Oh, yeah.
She loves it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Even though there's this other R that she's apparently seeing, who I don't think we see.
No, she's
right?
solo.
No.
He's like back in America or whatever.
Probably.
I'm sure that's not relevant. It's just weird because it's setting it up for what could be like an opposite Newt Leta situation in this film when they go to America again. I mean, we know we're going to see more of Jessica Williams' Overmorning Professor character. She had a brief cameo in this film, but I think we'll probably be back in America for a little bit. And, this other man now, this aura that Tina was after seeing or whatever, maybe would be like a foil to their romantic relationship in the next film, the way Leta was in this one.
And then this other love interest is going to die.
Yeah, horribly.
At the hands of Grindelwald.
It bothers me to no end that Leta didn't make it out of this film. I thought there was so much more potential that could have been done with her character. And, to be honest, we still haven't seen Newt get expelled from Hogwarts, which is apparently this huge adventure with the Jarvie, right? That Leta, he may or may not have covered up for Leta, gotten expelled instead, and Dumbledore had a hand in it. That's where I think the Newt Dumbledore connection is, why their connection is so strong. But we didn't really see any of that, and now Leta's dead, so if we do find out about it, it'll pretty much all be flashbacks. And I don't know, her death, her whole character arc was just to bring the brothers together. That seems not progressive.
Yeah.
And to explain the baby on the boat.
Oh yeah, and for that. which doesn't matter, because it wasn't really the one that they thought it was.
Yeah, Zoe Kravitz was also very good in this series. She played a very convincing role, particularly at the end of this movie. I felt when she was admitting to the baby crying too much. I actually really responded to that. I thought she pulled off that line perfectly for how outrageous it was of a thing to say. But I love Zoe Kravitz, and I too was surprised that J.K. Rowling ditched Leta this early. Definitely one of the more interesting characters. I feel like we have been seeing her for such a longer time, but we didn't see her at all in the first movie other than in that picture frame.
Yeah.
I guess I just got so used to seeing her in promo material that it's felt like that character's been around for much longer. But no, she basically just had one movie.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
She's integral, though, to the plot, because if we don't find out about this whole backstory, we don't find out that she is the reason that Credence is still alive. So I get telling it from that angle, but all the other stuff with her, maybe it will pay off in future films.
Mm-hmm.
I did see a couple people say, is she actually gone? Because it was kind of reminiscent to how Bellatrix was killed, right? She kind of started to break into pieces. Is that what I'm remembering? Is that right?
Danielle, did you call it Thanos' snap? Or was that...
She dissolved like all the characters, or half the characters in the MCU with the snap. Whatever fire that was, which I don't think we find out exactly what it is, right?
No.
But whatever it was just dissolving people everywhere.
That's one of my other critiques with this movie. We were seeing this new magic, which is fine, but it would be nice to understand what type of magic this actually is, because with the 7 Harry Potter books, we got so used to seeing all the magic explained to us. There wasn't a single spell that we couldn't figure out, whether it's because it was explained to us or context clues. Whereas here, Grindelwald creates this blue flame, and some people can get through it, but others can't. And then if you can't, you get Thanos'd.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was the obligatory end climactic battle scene. And it felt so pointless and obligatory that Leta should be caught up in this, that she should die, that there would have to be some kind of dramatic sacrifice for emotional weight to drive the plot forward, and it didn't feel earned. Grindelwald just creates this flame that's just so unbelievably complicated to destroy that he's able to get away. And in the meantime, the special effects department has their big, end battle. It honestly felt like the Burrow scene to me. Like the Burrow scene from Half-Blood Prince where the Burrow burns. And it's what's the point of this? It was just such a movieism.
Well, and what was that dragon that he created? I didn't understand why it was a dragon.
Smaug.
Smaug. It looked like the devil. The classic Ram depiction of the devil with horns.
And it was very anticlimactic when it just ended. I was expecting it to burst back out and there to be a whole nother fight sequence take place. It just kind of stopped, and that was it.
Well, Nicolas Flamel saved the day. He got everybody together in a circle and said, look, guys, just go in a circle. And they did.
Stick your wand in the ground.
Yeah. Finite.
I thought those spells were cool, by the way. I like that effect. Shoving a wand into the ground to create a spell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on, we talked about Dumbledore and Jude Law. How about Grindelwald, played by Johnny Depp?
How about not?
So I was actually really looking forward to Johnny Depp as Grindelwald because I liked seeing him in the trailer. I thought he looked great. I liked it looks like he was conducting an orchestra when conducting spells. But yeah, I don't know. I thought he was just fine. I didn't see any reason why it had to be Johnny Depp who was Grindelwald. And I kind of wish that the character was played up more. I actually felt like he was a little subdued. I would have actually liked to see Grindelwald be a little more grandiose, or maybe even a little kooky.
Yeah, I think for someone who has so many followers and who is able to convince people and who's able to win the favor of Dumbledore at some point, I was expecting a little bit more charisma or a reason why that I could figure out why people would really like him, because what he was saying and what he was telling the people at the rally wasn't necessarily it was just kind of putting his version of facts out there, but there was no wow factor about it. And so I think I was disappointed in Johnny Depp's performance in terms of that.
Yeah.
I thought it was pitch perfect of what we should expect. I thought it was subtle enough that I don't mind, because the thing I hate most about Johnny Depp in any role is when it's over the top and is Johnny Depp in your face. this, like, he's Grindelwald, for being the title character, Grindelwald is not in this movie very much. He's in it just enough. He has to escape. He has to, like, find a safe house, and he has to get Queenie and get Credence, and that's it. Like, that's all he does. And it's not over the top. It's not in your face. I think we're meant to just listen to his words. I think this movie's about the power of oratory, like, rhetoric and stuff. I think if we had to get, like, what this movie's, I don't know why, but, like, so Grindelwald is just talking, and it's not particularly interesting, but what he's saying is, like, I don't know, the way he's saying it is really hooking these people.
Yeah. And that's why I wish he was speaking in more of a grandiose fashion. Like, the way he was presenting himself wasn't in a particularly persuasive way to me.
I thought he was persuasive, though, primarily because of when he takes out his skull hookah and shows the war that's to come with the Muggle world. I thought the character of Grindelwald was very persuasive at the beginning when he was going through and talking about how there's the way for all of us to kind of be out in the open and live together, but then is extremely hypocritical by turning around once he tells them all to flee and starts killing, aura after aura after aura, when he was saying, we're not the ones who do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, there's that whole scene where that young woman is killed by one of the Aurors who's there, and he goes into this whole speech about how that's not our way. We don't do that. Go and spread the gospel. And then a couple minutes later, he's turning around and killing everything that, is within 10 feet of him. So I think it shows his diabolical nature and how truly evil he is. And I thought that end scene was very well done.
Are you Team Grindelwald, you monster?
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm going to call you Micah Goldstein now. But, like, with all that in mind...
it's close enough.
With all that in mind, it's crazy how Queenie actually sided with Grindelwald. I mean, she's hanging out with him at the very end of the movie.
She had to be on something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was close. If you saw it, it was close because there was pain as she was walking through that blue flame.
Well, she knew she was abandoning Jacob. She knew he would not follow. And he told her she was crazy again. I don't know, man. But I do love the Grindelwald manipulating the facts. He's using the threat of world war and atomic energy to terrify these wizards that they're all going to die if they let the Muggles keep running. That is brilliant. It's so good. Yeah. And I want to know all about the visions that he's been talking about for 2 movies now. He has some kind of precognitive ability. I don't know if it's this hookah that does it or what's really going on there, but it was clear to me that he doesn't really care about it for the same reasons that he says he cares about it. Just like he knew the woman was attacked first and then went and it's like basically the political equivalent of kissing a baby on the forehead, like what he does with her, like cradle her body and is like, take her to rest now. He doesn't care about what he's saying, but he says it to achieve the effect that he needs from a crowd of strangers or a crowd of people who are already pledged to him.
So the next couple characters we've already sort of discussed. Anybody have anything else to say about them?
I mean, the parasite in Yusuf, I don't really know. That gave his character something else to have happened to him, but Yusuf, again, is not very much an active sort of role. It's kind of just, there's this guy that we need information from, and he's gonna be out of it for a little while.
Yeah, was that just to slow him down enough so that they could talk to him? Was just put a parasite in his eye?
Creepy.
I don't know, but Jacob does know what tweezers are. So Nicolas Flamel, I thought this was a good example of a character that didn't need to be there. So Flamel, Yusuf, Nagini, McGonagall, there's like 4 characters at least who don't really have anything to do in this movie, hopefully are going to have more to do in the next few movies, but we keep adding on characters, so it's like, is it ever going to stop? But Nicolas Flamel didn't really have much to do. He's a bit of comic relief. He has a couple of good lines with Jacob. I think the most interesting thing that happened with him was when he opens up his little vault and you see the Sorcerer's Stone there, and he grabs this book and he communicates with Professor Eulalie, played by Jessica Williams, former Daily Show correspondent and a huge Harry Potter fan. She's actually become really close with J.K. Rowling. One of the reasons is because they both play the Sims video game. So anyway, Jessica Williams plays Professor Eulalie of Ilvermorny, and J.K. Rowling has said that Eulalie, I'm so afraid of tripping over it, will have a larger role in Fantastic Beasts 3. So obviously that was hinted at in this movie when Flamel opens up this book and he communicates with Professor Eulalie. To me, this seems like an Order of the Phoenix type group that... But what are they doing? And I think, Danielle, you might have an idea about that?
I have no idea.
Oh, whoever wrote in pink. Micah, sorry.
That was me.
Micah writing in pink. Look at you.
Yeah, I thought that it made sense if we're heading towards a world war, that the quote-unquote good side has a means of communication with each other. You know, we're not all in the UK where we can communicate by Patronus. So
Yeah.
maybe they all have these books, and this is their means of communication. And I asked the question, that symbol that we saw, it was on the postcard from Dumbledore. It was also outside of Flamel's home. Could that be their Order of the Phoenix symbol to play? That'll come into play later on in the film series,
Yeah.
or was it just Nicolas Flamel's family crest? Could be either.
Yeah.
Right.
The funny thing about Professor Eulalie is that if you didn't know, if J.K. Rowling didn't share that information on Twitter, you probably never would have known who that was.
Nope.
There is a little nameplate at the bottom of the book, but it's so small that it's hard to make out in the 5 to 10 seconds that she is talking to Flamel. Mm-hmm. But I did really love that because it does foreshadow something that's going to be happening in the next movie. So I was pleased to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad you put this in here because I haven't done nearly as much research, or I haven't been watching J.K. Rowling as much as you have. So I had no idea who this is. I had no idea if she was alive or if she was dead. I no idea. Or like why Nicolas Flamel was hanging out with like younger people.
You might have.
Like he's friends with Dumbledore and he's friends with Professor Eulalie. So I was just really confused as to what was going on.
And
but
she's telling him what to do too. Go to the cemetery. You have to go. Like, how does she have all this context to what's going on?
I did notice she was sitting in a chair, so maybe she is dead. I just thought she almost looked like she was sitting for a portrait instead of like on FaceTime.
Well, that might be how they're communicating too somehow. Like on her end, it might look like a mirror or something like that, but on his end, it's a portrait of her, and then she's able to just kind of sit in front of it.
Oh, maybe.
And chat. And that's kind of the impression I got, because the frame, the border, does look like a portrait.
Maybe somebody who doesn't know what the book is just assumes it's like a photo album.
Yeah, even though it is locked.
And this was not long after Jacob and Flamel were staring into that crystal ball together.
Which, another way of doing security footage, weirdly, in this film.
Yeah, I didn't love that. That was a little too convenient to me. Okay, so one of the first characters we actually saw in the movie, Abernathy. So he was in the first movie. This was, so he helped Grindelwald break out by transforming into Grindelwald, and Grindelwald transformed into Abernathy. But who knows when that switch actually happened? That was one thing that wasn't explained, but maybe should have been.
I would agree with that.
With the way that the Beast was reacting to his reunion with Grindelwald, I would think that it was a while ago. And that Abernathy was walking around. Because, I mean, Abernathy didn't have a tongue. So it was at least at some point in the past that he was the one who was pretending to be Grindelwald when they removed Grindelwald's tongue. So I don't think it was right before the transfer. I think it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Oh man, because now I'm remembering, like, doesn't Serafina Pickery tell them that tell Spielman or whoever that they removed his tongue?
Yeah, because he was too persuasive. They've changed the guards once. They've changed the guards 3 times because he's persuasive. And then they also removed his tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they didn't remove it permanently because both Abernathy and Grindelwald have tongues.
Well,
so I'm confused.
Well, Grindelwald gave it back to Abernathy.
Yeah, but I'm confused. Why did he have his tongue to begin with? Like, wasn't that because, like, I'm just so confused with who had it when and when the guard was changed. Because I don't know, it's grotesque, first of all, to be talking about tongues. But Grindelwald, and then Abernathy, once he gets his tongue back, doesn't have any lines the rest of the movie. So it's just like, well, what is really, like, the point? Like, he's there, he's posing, breaking into the French ministry with the other woman, you know, and is kind of a loyal, devoted servant, but really does not have a lot to do. I would have liked to have understood his character motivations better in general, given that we see him as just being this kind of overwhelmed mid-level. You wouldn't even think he was that.
He's
really
a lackey.
Important. Yeah, he's not important.
He seemed like a Pettigrew-like character to me.
I actually found it interesting that little creature next to Grindelwald was the Chupacabra.
Ah.
The Chupacabra is the beast that Johnny Depp once blamed for missing a press day. A few years ago, he said, "Sorry, guys, that I couldn't make it the other day. I was fighting a Chupacabra." And now J.K. Rowling puts his character with a Chupacabra. She must have known about that excuse that Johnny Depp made up. Because we speculated about this previously. I was like, why is a Chupacabra in here? Johnny Depp, once said he fought a Chupacabra. Is that a reference? I feel like it's definitely a reference since that beast is associated with Grindelwald.
And then he just chucks him out of the carriage.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. Too
he
clingy.
doesn't care about
That
him
poor thing.
or her.
That's a Funko, by the way.
Well, and speaking of throwing things out of the carriage, Spielman, who is there during the transfer / escape, it gets tossed from the carriage, plunges down into, the Hudson River there, and Grindelwald lets him live. That was curious to me. He kills everybody else for the most part, and Spielman is left to live, and we also see Spielman show up at Hogwarts at the end of the film. So this character kind of bookends this movie.
Yeah.
Any thoughts why?
It's hard to... Isn't he's part of the government? Isn't he part of the Newt conversation where they're trying to hire him to go after Credence as well? Like one of the 3 wizards who sits above the pensive and interrogates Newt at the ministry in the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Or visits Dumbledore with, like, Theseus and the other Aurors. Was he in there, too?
I think so. So he's
I
definitely...
don't think so. I could be wrong. I don't think he was.
Oh, okay. Because it's so confusing between him. I was confusing him with the other guy.
The creepy guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The creepy guy who really gets the job. Newt knows him.
Grimson?
Is that Grimson?
Was that his name? Because for a while I also thought that he was Leta's dad in the flashbacks, and so I was just really confused.
And Grindelwald says that the whole world will know his name if wizards rise to prominence, and he was supposed to be a good guy because he's the one hunting Grindelwald, but he's working for Grindelwald. I don't know. It's another one of those double agent sort of things, but I was confused what his name was. I confused him.
Grimson's supposed to be hunting Credence, not Grindelwald.
Oh, Credence, right? But he's working for. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's a double agent.
Yeah, I keep
Spielman,
thinking...
though, it just seemed out of place for him to be at Hogwarts because everybody else who was there had just fought Grindelwald. He was the only one that it just...
Maybe there was some deleted scene where his presence at Hogwarts at the end would have been explained. It's the only thing I can think of.
Could be. It would have made more sense for Flamel to have been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's old. He takes like 30 naps a day. He can make it.
thought it was a little convenient that Spielman's wand came to him and when he was falling.
Oh man, like I don't even remember. I barely remember Spielman. I had to go Google him when you guys were just talking about him to remember what he looked like.
I was waiting for you to give me context clues on who he was because he was just another like white dude in this.
Yeah, exactly.
But didn't Grindelwald like flick Spielman's wand at him towards the end?
Does he flick it? Does he control?
I thought so, to like help him live, like to make sure that he lived.
Well, he does need a witness. He does need to leave one witness so that whoever it is can just tell the world what happened or whatever.
Exactly.
Interestingly, I'm pretty sure Spielman has the first lines in this movie. Because he's talking with Serafina as they're going to get Grindelwald at the very beginning of the film. So I think I'll confirm on Friday when my script book arrives, but I'm pretty sure he speaks first. It's just weird, because who is he?
Yep.
I don't know.
Something else I wanted to bring up, I just remembered when I mentioned Hogwarts. I don't think I said this earlier. I loved all of the Hogwarts scenes. Like, all that stuff.
Yes, me too.
It felt so good to be back there. We got some themes from Harry Potter. Just seeing the castle in modern CGI and on a big IMAX screen, I was just like, yay! And the audience, everybody was like, yay!
The warmth of the buildings, of the settings.
Yeah.
There was just so much character to each of those locations that it just felt like a warm hug every time Hogwarts was on screen.
I could have done with a less grandiose musical score for when they first go back. I love the old themes, but it was definitely pretty much everything from movie one as loud as possible.
Oh, I loved that.
As it was way too long. It went on for like a minute and a half. And I was just like, this is the suite from Sorcerer's Stone. Get over it. We get it. It's Hogwarts. Move on. I was thrilled to be there, but the music was way over the top. It's like when you're being aware that when you're being made aware that it's a callback, but like it just lingers too long. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the music then.
Wow. Mr. Party Pooper over here.
Yeah.
Eric started a round of applause in our theater when the Niffler...
He was clapping a few times.
Yeah, but he started... Well, the one I noticed was when the Niffler pulled the blood pact object out of Newt's coat.
Yeah.
And gave it to Dumbledore. Eric started the round of applause.
It caught on. Finally.
It did catch on.
I tried.
Cracks me up.
I tried when...
Well, there was only 5 people in the theater, so it was, what, you 3 and 2 others?
Yeah, all of them were with us. Oh, jeez. Thanks for clapping along, guys. I appreciate it.
I didn't clap because I'm not going to follow everybody else's lead just because one person is clapping it. I may have clapped a little bit.
Did you see that coming though?
Yes, but I forgot about it. So I don't know.
It was like the Niffler climbs up his pants leg or something when he's examining the dead body of the woman.
I clapped when we first went back to Hogwarts, I think. That was exciting.
Yeah. No, there's a lot to love in the visuals. Like you're saying, Hogwarts, like it was so good to be back. And in general, I think the sets were everybody brought their A game. It really felt like every one of these locations was very lived in and like you could explore more. I don't know. The Harry Potter film sets never felt like sets, but that's never been truer than in this movie, I don't think. Like it just,
I would agree 100%. I thought Newt's basement was awesome.
Oh yeah.
I thought Circus Arcanus was really, really cool, and just the whole street that it was set up on. Even the shots when they're going to apparate to Paris, and they're just on those cliffs. I'm not sure where those are, but those were amazing shots in IMAX.
Yeah. It's the cliffs of Dover. It's famously just across from it's across the English Channel from France, and it's sort of their chalk deposits. Actually, they're chalk cliffs. Yeah.
Okay. So, what else do we want to?
Let's talk for a minute about this. It's not. I don't know if you classify it. I guess it is a prophecy because it was mentioned in Leta's poster, right? That she is. What was the word?
Implicated.
Implicated by prophecy, and it's almost as if there's this like myth or story, almost like the Tales of Beto the Bard. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? Like people were saying it throughout the course of the film, and I need to get the script book because I cannot remember what the exact wording of it was.
Yeah.
No. They kept starting like in the middle of the story or just saying, "Have you read this?" And they're like, "Yes." I don't remember getting the full thing. And if we did, it was in the middle of something else where it's gone. It's out of my brain.
I agree.
Yeah.
What if we don't get it in the script book? Maybe we just have to wait for number 3.
Yeah. Which is stupid.
Sit down, Newt.
But, like-
I'm going to tell you the full prophecy.
Is it that important if Leta is dead?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well,
too.
I don't think it has anything to do with Leta. I think it has to do with Credence and his backstory.
Something about a haunted henchman or something, or a high level.
If anybody listening remembers it or wrote it down, I'm
yeah,
going to check the live stream here.
Does it also have to do with, like, people were talking about how there are 2 descendants of purebloods left or something, and Credence could be one of them. Does that have something to do with this as well?
I would think so, because
I don't know what that was either.
There was definitely a mention of a sister and a brother, and I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly what was said. So if anybody that's listening now on Patreon remembers, let us know, and we can probably speculate more on it next episode once we actually have the script book as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, my other question related to what Danielle was just saying was, why is it so important that these people are at the end of the pureblood line?
Well, why does there need to be a prophecy at all?
Yeah.
Why does Polyjuice Potion keep coming back?
Newt used it too. It wasn't just
All the transforming I did not like.
Abernathy.
Like, okay, once or twice, but it seemed like it happened a lot in this movie. And of course, it happened in the first movie as well. So, like, okay, that was the trick of the first movie. So, time to do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why I keep coming back to that bird.
Yeah.
There's so much transforming.
Yep. Woo! Okay.
You know, it wouldn't be Fantastic Beasts if we didn't talk about the beasts. I know this episode's running long, but can we go through what our favorite beasts were, or do we like the beasts, or, you know, because there were, you know what, there were a lot more than I was expecting.
That giant cat thing was cool.
Zulu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked how they tamed it with that little toy.
I want that toy. I want that toy. If I have to pay $35 for it, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
I really liked the Kelpie. That scene was kind of hard to follow in IMAX with everything kind of floating everywhere. But I thought it was a really cool beast, and I liked the way it interacted with Newt and with Bunty towards the end of at least that scene that he was in.
Yeah.
It was everything in that basement was awesome. The Lucrata that I don't know what she was doing when he first walks down the stairs.
And brushing its teeth, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The Zulu already mentioned. The baby Nifflers, how can we not
Yeah, of
include them?
course. Of course. We had heard previously, and this is just one of those things I guess they just don't have time for in the movie, but we had read somewhere, some official source said that the baby Nifflers were being bred because the Niffler in the first movie became really popular, like within the wizarding world. So, and then the Niffler population kind of got out of control or something like that. That's what one of these companion books say.
So they were gonna traffic the Nifflers,
Right. Yeah, it was something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't remember exactly, but I think you're right. And there was no place in this film for Newt's fame to hinder him. That was totally a plot line that was hinted at, was that
Yeah.
now Newt's book is out, because we've seen, even in the newspaper article, we've seen, like, he had a Daily Prophet release party. It was a big deal. Now Newt is world famous. But because of the travel ban on him, or, you know, nobody stops him on the sidewalk when he's trying to do something important and is like, Newt? Are you Newt Scamander?
Right.
Like, I loved your book. I have 3 Nifflers now myself. Like, that never happened, and it absolutely should have, because that's like an easy, like, way to, like, naturally interrupt a mission or something. Like, it's low hanging fruit for, like, a natural way to distract Newt instead of like all this other stuff that happens.
Agree. And
I was very surprised by how many beasts were actually in this movie. I didn't think they would be so involved, but they really were.
Yeah.
And then Newt was doing that powder stuff to like track where the beasts had been.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Time powder or like shadow memory powder.
I thought that was interesting, but again, that's something like I wish would have been explained more. And I'm hopeful, I doubt it's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that in the script book there might be some explanations for these types of things, because you have to write descriptions for some of these scenes.
I do
We'll
agree.
see.
I agree.
Yeah.
100% on that.
I thought there were great moments with the beasts going into Newt's basement. They all had sort of their own character and personality. Pickett was great at different moments. The circus, that beast that we had talked about, the Oni, was in the background at one point. That Japanese beast that caused all types of speculation early on. The Kappa, the water demon that Newt kind of sees initially when he does his tracking. I just thought the beasts were great in this film.
Yeah.
They weren't overwhelming. That's
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm going to probably say Pickett then was my favorite. Not as cute as the Niffler, but sort of cute.
Pickett in the flashback scenes or Pickett present day?
Oh, just Pickett in the whole movie in general.
Yeah.
But I liked when he helped them out of the sewer, like Yusuf's prison or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was so understated. It was just like, oh yeah, here you go. I'm going to get you out of this.
I feel like there's a huge opportunity right now. Like J.K. Rowling really could have shifted into making this series all about the beasts because of the popularity of Pokemon. Everybody is still so obsessed with Pokemon. 2 years after Pokemon Go, this new Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu is about to come out for Nintendo Switch. Everybody's very excited.
Detective Pikachu.
This didn't have to be about Grindelwald and Dumbledore at all. It could have been a beast movie. Everybody would have been very pleased.
And what did you think?
Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, Detective
yeah.
Pikachu's coming out too, right?
Detective Pikachu.
There you go.
There we
What did you make of the Matagos in the Ministry?
Oh,
They creep me out.
creepy, weird. Yeah. Creepy, weird, unexplained. Are they spirits? And I got confused as hell when they're on the Zoo. Does Newt apparate and then Sidalong apparate the Zoo to
No,
another place?
it's mentioned in the film that they can travel very far distances in very short periods of time.
But it seemed like because they were fighting these spirit cats that they went into the spirit realm for a second.
Yeah,
It was a very weird kind of thing.
and then they turned into kittens. Yeah, I don't know. They probably just got caught in the transfer.
Yeah.
So, how about this for a final question? And then we're going to do a lot more in the days and weeks ahead. What were the crimes of Grindelwald?
Yes, thank you.
Danielle,
I
mean,
don't know what this title was.
I'm just reading your question, so you're welcome.
I mean, the beginning sets it up pretty well because you have that really exciting opening scene where he's escaping. And you have Serafina actually talking about him being returned to Europe to be put on trial for his crimes. And so there I was like, okay, well, here we go. This is the title. But then he's obviously never brought to any sort of justice. The police don't even really go after him at the rally.
Yeah.
Even though he's a fugitive, they like are there for the people who show up to the rally. They're not there for Grindelwald. They're not talking about his crimes. So what is the title?
So, like, part of me thinks that it was strictly a marketing move. Because I think back to The Hobbit, when WB was naming The Hobbit, and at one point, they had one name for the third one, but then they changed it to this very direct name, The Battle of the Five Armies. It was just so, like, it was just so dumb. And The Crimes of Grindelwald, I think, is the same thing, where they're trying to make this, like, statement to try to get people excited. But if you want to think about it on a deeper level, then the crimes of Grindelwald are killing Leta, are maybe lying to Credence. Are these actual crimes? Well, the killing is, but lying to Credence, like, that's something that has major implications and obviously sets up the next few movies and leaves us all like, oh my God, what the hell happened? So I feel like you could argue that a crime of Grindelwald is lying to Credence to try to make him kill Dumbledore. I don't know.
Tweet J.K. Rowling, see what she'll say to you after Friday.
I'm curious if she's going to talk about it, because like they're doing this whole Protect the Secrets campaign, just like they did for Cursed Child.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling still isn't talking about Cursed Child. Is she going to talk about Grindelwald?
She should. I really think that if this film is confusing the deepest Harry Potter fans, I need her to write stuff on Pottermore again. I need her to write stuff on Pottermore that answers a couple questions. You don't need to spoil the future series. You don't need to spoil the future films at all. If she can just explain what the hell happened that we all just watched, I'm going to see it again. I'm going to see it probably 3 times. If she can just explain what it is we're watching, I would be very grateful, because it's not clear. It's just not clear. As for the Crimes of Grindelwald, being an MRFing sorcerer, I don't, being too sexy. I don't, what do you?
I think it's going to be something that we're able to look back on with more understanding once we see the other films to get a sense. He's probably laying groundwork. Yes, he was taken or was trying to be taken to Europe to answer for his previous crimes, but I think a lot of what he's doing now is laying the groundwork for crimes that will be committed in the future.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I did have one other thing before we kind of wrap it up. We opened talking about, I don't know if we even mentioned that, at least in my theater, there was this comparison video between Potter and Fantastic Beasts to kind of get people ready. Jude Law, Eddie Redmayne. We're talking about all the connections between the two films series.
Oh.
And one of the things that I noted, and maybe it was just me, when Grindelwald comes to Paris and he's finding where he wants to hide out, he sends his minions in, they go and they kill the mother and the father, and then they go in and they see that there's also this little baby boy, and one of his henchmen end up killing the child. But I thought that was very, very reminiscent of Voldemort and the Potters and what happened at Godric's Hollow.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Bad writing. No, I'm just joking.
No, it is. There's another moment of Grindelwald's hypocrisy, because he's talking moments before then about, I don't know, what they're willing to do or what they're willing to go to, and then he just has his follower kill this baby seconds later. It just kind of, I think is he talking about how they don't need to kill all the Muggles, and then they find this baby and are just like, well, that's a shame.
Mike, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that shot, the baby almost looked like Harry to me. Yeah. The angle, the way it was kind of hunched over and looking up. Mm-hmm. Was that just me?
In the moment, that connection did not register, but thinking back on it, I can definitely see, I can see the connection there, and I'm seeing exactly what you're seeing, Andrew, or what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Just the way that the baby was looking up at the camera, right, with like a curiosity in his eyes.
Right. I bet if we do a side-by-side of that once this movie is out on DVD, I think it's going to look very similar. Maybe on purpose. Who knows? So let's wrap it up there. Like I said, so we're recording on Wednesday night. We saw it Tuesday night. I'm personally seeing it Thursday night. I assume y'all are going to be seeing it again sometime this weekend.
Yeah.
Nah.
We will be doing another episode on Monday, and that episode we're going to get everybody's feedback in on. So we're recording before it officially opens worldwide. So over the next few days, we encourage everybody to send in their feedback. MuggleCast@gmail.com. You can use the contact form on MuggleCast.com. You can tweet us, Twitter.com/MuggleCast or Facebook.com/MuggleCast. We also have the voicemail line. We would love if you called in. I know we're already getting calls. 1-920-3-MUGGLE. That's 1-920-368-4453. Just remember to keep your messages around a minute and try to record in a quiet place, unless you're in the movie theater. I would love if somebody called us from the movie theater right after seeing the movie, and we can hear the music playing in the background.
Don't call during the movie.
during the movie.
Don't be that person.
Call us while Newt is trying to give Tina the salamander line. You know what? No, call us. Never mind. I'm encouraging people to record the movie. That's not right. Never mind. I was going to say call us during the Yusuf Leta backstory, so we can hear it and figure it out. But I'm kidding. We'll have the script book.
Yeah.
So yeah, between seeing it again, between reading the script book, I think our opinions on the movie and the plot are going to evolve over the next few days. So it'll be interesting to talk about it again on Monday with everybody's feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I have a Quizzitch question for everybody.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So last week's question asked by Micah was, what are the names of Newt's 3 pet Kneasels? And the answer is that his Kneasels, and this is in the future when he's older, are called Hoppy, Millie, and Mauler. And it's, what's the word? A gallery of rogues, or all of our favorite people answered this on Twitter, including the real Slim Brady, Denise, Hollywood Carl's Hand, Where in the World is Kevin Steck, Charlie, Father of Dragons, Count Ravioli is back and submitted, Samwise Gamgee, Vaping with Dad, and the insufferable know-it-all all got the correct answer. So congratulations to all of you guys for getting the correct answer. Next week's question, and this is for our live show on Monday, so it's a very timely question that I tried, but we asked each other on the last episode what the opening weekend gross would be for the United States for this film. That's the Quizzitch question. What is the opening weekend domestic U.S. box office total of Fantastic Beasts 2: Crimes of Grindelwald? And this is going to be a question that you can't even answer until Monday morning. So there's a very short turnaround before we record at noon Eastern on Monday.
Tricky. We'll also be streaming that live on Patreon, by the way. Patreon.com/MuggleCast is where you can support us. I also, speaking of Quizzitch, want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Mandy. So while we were recording tonight, Trivia HQ, the popular trivia app, was doing a Harry Potter night. She was one of the winners, and she won $218.
Nice.
You guys, we should have done that.
Well, I actually was playing while we were recording, but I didn't want to disrupt the show.
Me too.
You too?
Which one did you get bounced on?
I lost at the chocolate frog card.
Oh, really?
It said, who's Dumbledore's partner on the chocolate frog card?
Oh. You thought of the wrong partner, Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it Flamel?
Yes.
Oh.
I lost on, I think it was the next one about the Hogwarts song. It's like, which of these is not mentioned in the Hogwarts school song?
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
So It was a $50,000 jackpot. That's nothing. I mean, we give away $100,000 here on MuggleCast every week in our Quizzitch. But $50,000 jackpot on HQ Trivia. And yeah, congrats to Mandy and anyone else who may have won.
Well done.
And Mike is ready for bed. So on that note, Danielle, thanks for joining us. It was great having you on and seeing the movie
Yes,
with you
thank you so
yesterday.
much for having me back. It was a pleasure.
Sure thing. And again, we will be recording another episode on Monday, incorporating everybody's feedback. We can all figure this movie out together. We want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm Andrew.
I'm Eric.
Micah.
And I'm Danielle.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.